Well, here we are. I'm back in the land of Alternate Chapter of the World, Episode 2, Season 2. And so this was the current world situation when we left. And I also made the Alliance mode. Now, this might look different than the Alliance map mode. Um, from Alternate Future Season 1, but that's because I made some mistakes in that one. For example, I placed Ecuador in the Rio Pact and I didn't place Armenia and CSTO. These I included all the active military alliances on Wikipedia's list of military alliances. Dots inside of a country um are just alliances that because I couldn't color them a country multiple colors, so the US is in all of these alliances. For some reason, Thailand had three different alliances that were all active with the United States. One of them, I guess, technically wasn't just with the United States. It's this main color for Thailand. It was SEATO, or the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which I didn't even know existed, but it included a lot of countries over here. So, um, yeah, but anyway, and do you know this like light green color isn't technically a military alliance? It is the major non-NATO US allies. So all the countries that are this color that you see, they aren't aligned with each other. They're aligned with the US. Several countries had several alliances with each other. In Ukraine's case, they also have military alliances with other people. Like they have, also I don't know the names of these because I don't have them memorized. Like Ukraine had this alliance with Poland and Lithuania, as well as one with Poland and the UK, which I thought was interesting. That has nothing to do with Russia, Ukraine at all. Then there's this one to Turkey and Azerbaijan. And again, the US is in a whole bunch of separate alliances. They're in 12, I believe. And more might form that they will join. And of course, we have the oldest alliance in the world, the Portuguese British alliance, but let's start the scenario. So we'll be starting up here where one of our alliances is going to come into play. And it is none other than this alliance. The Polish Lithuanian Ukrainian alliance. Now there's also one that's Polish Ukrainian um British, but that one British didn't want to get involved. Poland is saying it has activated both the Polish-Ukrainian Lithuanian alliance and the Polish-British Ukrainian alliance. So they're fighting on behalf of both those alliances, and Britain is sending a lot of aid over here to Poland. Same with most NATO countries up here in the Baltic. However, Russian troops begin invading um Lithuania and they take Vilnius. And however, they do not activate NATO as technically Lithuania and Poland should not be colored in as defenders. They joined this war on their own free will because they technically didn't have to activate those alliances even though they were supposed to. So NATO will not be joining this war. Not right now, anyway. Russian troops sweep up against the border of the Baltic Sea in Lithuania and completely capitulate the nation. However, Ukrainian troops had a large boost in morale and are fighting back the Russians over here, as well with Polish help, pushing them out of the west and beginning an invasion of Belarus. Kaliningrad is taken by the Polish, who, sorry, I'm a little, my sick today, but along with an invasion of Lithuania, swooping up to the coast and beginning to free the state. Latvia allows Polish troops to pass through, which does that. However, Russia could not declare war on Latvia as that would activate NATO, even though Poland is using Latvia to invade into them. Poland also begins using Estonia to do the same. And the Russians, needing to retreat to a more holdable front, completely push out of Lithuania. And Lithuania and Poland begin pushing into Belarus. The blue people, the Ukrainians, spearhead towards Minsk and take the city. They meet up with the Polish and encircle large Russian army. I'm not sure if you say Belarusian or Belarusian, but Belarusian sounds more correct, so I'm going to use it. Ukrainian troops push farther against the Russians. They retake Odessa and begin pushing into the Donbass region. At this point, Russia offers a peace treaty with Ukraine. However, Ukraine, knowing they could, however, this peace treaty still includes annexation of Crimea and the Donbass area, and Ukraine knows that they could keep those lands in the peace treaty if they keep fighting. So this peace treaty offer from Russia is rejected by the Ukrainians, which is a very controversial move. However, it seems to mostly pay off for Ukraine as they push Russia out of the Donbass region and begin invading into Crimea, taking Sevastopol, and eventually taking the area. Russia now is faced with the decision about what to do, and they decide to keep fighting. However, this is a very unpopular move. Belarus surrenders, and finally, after lots of fighting, Russia surrenders as well. And we can begin this peace treaty. So, what will the peace treaty be? Well, obviously, some countries will gain land. First thing, what is it? Russia. We're gonna ignore that for now and move down south to Belarus. Ukraine will extend their border. Actually, let me just do something. Ukraine will extend their border north a little. There, take this. However, their most major expansion into Belarus is down here with a rather large expansion. Actually, it's not that large. Poland will annex that. Lithuania will take this. And that is it for Belarus. Now, Poland contemplated giving land to Latvia. Well, Poland, Ukraine, and Lithuania contemplated giving land to Latvia and Estonia, allowing them to go through their lands. However, they decided against it, as some countries were still in NATO and other alliances in other Western alliances were still rejecting that Poland and Lithuania did that, and that if they did reward Latvia and Estonia with land, then it would be harder for them to deny that. So they don't do that. Russia keeps their same land. They don't have any border changes. However, Crimea is Ukrainian. This area is Ukrainian. This area is Ukrainian. This area is Ukrainian. Russia has to acknowledge all of that in separate treaties, but who cares? That now back up north to Kaliningrad. What do we do with it? Do we give it to Poland? Do we give do we give it to Poland or do we give it to Lithuania? Or do we unite Poland and Lithuania? No, no, no. All of these are lies. We give it to Germany. That's right. It's a historic German territory, so it makes sense to give it to Germany. It's Prussia, and it's also a reward to Germany for not trying anything suspicious in the past years. So, yeah, that will go to Germany. Back up on the alliance map, Ukraine will have to change a bit. They will become a blue state. But wait! There's more. They also eventually I will update this. It's just they also will have to have their dot there as NATO is their main alliance now. However, you want to know some other countries who are getting some dots? Latvia and Estonia are given entry into this new Eastern European Pact. Romania is as well given membership, and this alliance is growing, kind of, in some directions. But then we'll take a break from the alliance map for a minute and carry down to here. Now, let's look at the alliance map again. So, the Peninsula Shield Force, this is the whole reason this war started. Peninsula Shield Force joined it. Now, Jordan and Israel are both MNNA. So are Kuwait. Saudi Arabia, I think, is one. Let me check. Saudi Arabia isn't one, which just confuses me, but Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar are. So now, if the US was to join the side that had more M, N, and A on it, they would have to join the orange side. However, they don't want to betray Israel, and they don't want to betray either side. So they are actually going to stay neutral in this war. Now, it doesn't mean they're very, very involved in this. They are. They are trying to work out a peace deal in which Israel still exists. And eventually, one is came up with. Ah, however, the orange team agrees with it. They like it. It's fine with them. Kind of. They don't really particularly like it, but it's fine with them. Even to Palestine. However, Israel doesn't agree to it, which causes a massive orange invasion. Tel Aviv falls, and now the US is worried that Israel is now gonna want now that the orange team is gonna want Israel to be fully annexed by Palestine. So the US tells Israel to surrender, and finally Israel does. And we can finally take a look at this peace treaty. There you go. The peace treaty has not been decided yet. So, first of all, the Golan Heights will lose their Israel likeness. They will go over to the Syrians. Let me just perfect that. Hold on. To the border right. Maybe if we start up here, but that will do. And then that's the only visible change on this map. Israel has to recognize Palestine's current borders. Palestine has to recognize Israel's current borders. And that is that. Oh wait, did Syria already get the Golden Heights? I think not. I think not. If they did, just correct me in the comments and I will correct that border to what it was before. I don't think they did, but maybe they did. And now that conflict is settled, we'll go down to the last one. Not that major conflict. Conflicts like this are very common on the African continent anyway. And Darfur needs to do something. And they want more land. Now, South Sudan is a rather weak state, and so they surrender, probably the best option. And we can take a look at this peace treaty. Now, I'm just trying to fix that there were teal on the borders there. This peace treaty will exact revenge upon South Sudan. The South Sudanese will lose all that land to Darfur, and there we have it. Darfur is now a country. But now a new alliance that is not related to anything is going to be formed. And this new alliance will require the recoloring of another alliance. One that has never existed before. Recolor. Oh, I'm on the wrong background. Now, there's a big blob in the United States, and we'll just do that. And there once was a blob named Harry, destined to be a star. His blobs were named Blob, and they all thought they were far. So, you might be saying, why would an alliance require the recoloring of yet another alliance? Oh, my friend, it is simple. Because I need that color for this alliance. Now, what alliance is this that requires another alliance's color? Well, this alliance is an age-old alliance that has never existed before. It is between Italy, Germany, between Italy, Germany, France, and Austria, as well as a couple other countries in the northern regions of Europe, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. What is this alliance, you might be asking? Well, it is the alliance of European unification. Now, this doesn't mean Europe will unite right away, just they're planning to form a unified Europe in the near future around the lines of that. However, now we'll take a break from Europe and go downtown to Nigeria and Cameroon. No one knows what these alliances are. Nobody cares what these alliances are. So, who will attack first? But undo, undo, undo. Do, undo, undo. Undo. But Nigeria will declare war on Cameroon, Benin, Togo, and Niger, attacking every country they border except for Chad, and then some. So, why are they doing this? Nobody knows. They just wanted an empire. They want to become the strongest, most developed country in Africa, and they need to expand. So, they begin attacking into Benin, reach Togo. Well, and it would be more accurate if I colored all these countries in on different colors, but I'm not gonna do that, so Benin and Togo will completely capitulate. Niamey, or whatever the capital of Niger is pronounced, falls over to the Nigerians, who completely take over that and begin large invasions of Niger and the tail of Cameroon. Now, the US doesn't like this action. Now, if we look at the alliance map, basically none of Africa is aligned. It's not these countries. And while the US has somewhat good relations with some of these countries, including Nigeria itself, but they don't really like what Nigeria is doing to the outside world. Invading into Cameroon and taking over that until the country, Cameroon and Niger, capitulate, ending the war to end all wars. That wasn't the war to end all wars. What are you talking about? Where did that come from? I don't know. Anyway, a puppet state will be formed, which is actually kind of surprising. Here, called here, that will become a puppet state. So, Northern Cameroon will be annexed, and this will become a puppet state as well. Two puppet states. Benin and Togo will be almost entirely annexed. The others will be spit out. Not even Nigeria won't even bother making them puppet states, as they took all the land they really needed from them, the southern portion, which is the better part. And in terms of Niger, the nation is completely taken into account as part of Nigeria. No, Nigeria has completely expanded its borders elsewhere, taking the tail. However, Chad remains untouched, which is kind of weird, but who cares? They're a neutral nation. So, the next thing that comes up will be a direct reason from this attack, with several parts of it are going to affect a lot of things over here in West Africa. So the first thing is Ghana annexes Togo, Burkina Faso annexes Benin, because they're kind of week. Now, the next thing is a French English African Union takes place between French, English, and countries in Africa, with English and French both recognized as national languages, and you're supposed to be try to learn both so that you can communicate with almost anyone in the union. I didn't do that because I touched the ocean. Huh. Anyway, so this is formed partly to stop Nigeria's expansion, partly just to make these areas more economically independent from the rest of the world. Well, all the countries are economically dependent on the world in some way or another, except for North Korea, probably. But this is a union to stop Nigeria up in economic output and have us be the one and only African superpower. This is not it's not even close to being a superpower though. I wouldn't even say it's the strongest country in Africa. It is probably the biggest. I'll give it that. Though if I had to say who the strongest countries in Africa are, I would say probably South Africa. Well, Egypt is first. South Africa is second. The DRC is third. Nigeria is fourth. Algeria is fifth. Angola is sixth, which may surprise me if I don't actually know. And they are seventh. Um, Probably like Ethiopia is eighth. Darfur actually is ninth. And finally, Madagascar is 10th. So this is probably nowhere close to actual Africa's military rankings, but it is the ones here. So they're seventh. They couldn't beat Nigeria in a war quite yet, not even Algeria for that matter. But if Algeria joins, they would be second, I think. Wouldn't they? But anyway, we don't care about the military rankings of Africa. Next action is probably funded by a couple people. It's over here in Ecuador and it's actually probably funded by the US if you ask me. This is kind of speaks US funded to me. But anyway, you might be asking, what is it? Well, I'm coloring the blue, so Ecuador breaks out into civil war. Now, Ecuador is probably, I'd say, rather stable country. Maybe, I don't actually know. However, and they're breaking out into civil war, and to guess what the main rebel group wants? To join the US's alliance, the Rio Pact, which is why, well, it's what makes many people think this is US funded. There are other small rebel groups that probably weren't funded by the US, just popped up when the opportunity came. However, there's this original one, firm monarchist one, pro-Rio Pact one, and communist one. So the communist one actually gains a lot of traction over here in eastern Ecuador, completely taking out a pocket of the pro-Rio Pact and taking over, becoming the largest non-blue group in Ecuador, maybe even the biggest group in Ecuador now. However, the Rio Pact forces sweep down and take Quito. The monarchist forces expand and take over that rebel group of them and meet up with the Socialist Communist Party thing. They meet up with the coast and begin fighting them. The socialists just destroy them, giving them sea access, and it's seeming like the socialists will win the Ecuadorian Civil War. However, it is not over, not quite yet. The original Ecuador government escapes to the Galapagos Islands. They begin pushing against the socialists. However, a major victory is achieved by the socialists when Quito falls. I think Quito's like right here, this area, general area. But I'm not sure. For all I know, it could be here. But we're gonna pretend it's here for our purposes. The socialists will push against the Democrats. And Ecuador has been taken by the communists. Now, if you ask me, that probably, probably wasn't America's intended effect by that. If they funded it, we still don't know. However, there are some effects. One of them is, boom. Wow. That's right. No changes on the map, except the Galapagos Islands are kind of like Taiwan now. The original Ecuador government escaped there, but so that's Ecuador. And over here in mainland Ecuador, they will join the CS. Oh, they will join the CSTO, being the first country to do so on the African continent. Responding to this, the US becomes a 13 alliance. Well, I guess it would be 13 already because with the NATO, which I forgot to count, but they will soon get a 14th alliance if they join. A yellow alliance, which includes, well, none other than a lot of countries. But who could it be? India? I could probably make that a little bigger. But anyway, India, Taiwan, the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, conflicting dot sizes, Australia, and New Zealand. And probably their biggest member, New Zealand. Wow. Actually, the strongest member is Papua New Guinea. Anyway, that is the VT. Also, I don't know why I made India as a dot. They aren't in any other alliances, so there you go. However, this anchors Pakistan quite a bit, actually. And Pakistan is just like, yeah, and you know what? We're not an MNA anymore, and they leave those pacts with the United States, which anchors the US. And that causes something over here on this map mode. The good map mode. The nice map mode. India. Wow, I like it. You might be saying Pakistan. The US will tell India to invade Pakistan, take land if they want, and establish a pro-USA, pro-India government, which would be the first time since both the countries' formations that would have happened. So India will invade Pakistan. They will take Islamabad really quickly, Now, Pakistan wasn't expecting this, which is how they're falling so quickly. However, have gotten their military mobilized and have begun pushbacks. They defend Karachi in the south from Indian attacks and begin pushing against all fronts. However, their biggest victory is retaking Islamabad and defending it. However, this requires them to pull forces out of the Kashmir region, and it falls over to the Indians. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Alternate Future of the World. I hope to see you next time, and guten, goodbye. Yeah, you have a good day.